South Africa, 1964, a country shackled by apartheid, where music was modern entertainment. It was a rebellion, it was hope, and from the dusty streets of Langa township, a voice will rise, a voice so bold, so electric, that it will shake the foundation of the nation. This is the story of Brenda Fassie, the woman they call the Madonna of the townships, the queen of African pop, and the rebel who lived on her own terms. Her life was a whirlwind of fame, controversy, addiction, and glory. But behind the dazzling spotlight was a woman with a story so raw, so human, that it changed African music forever. Brenda Fassie was born on November 3, 1964, in Langa, a township outside of Cape Town. The youngest of 9 children, music flowed through her veins. Her mother, Grace Fassie, was a pianist, while her father, a singer, passed away when Brenda was just 2 years old. From that day, her mother carried the family and nurtured Brenda's gift. By the age of 5, Brenda was singing for tourists to help her family earn money. She wasn't just talented, she was extraordinary. Her voice had special magic, a mix of pain, joy, and defiance. Locals called her Little Brenda, but soon the world would know her name. Her mother named her Brenda after the American singer Brenda Lee, fitting for a girl who would grow into a global superstar. At just 16, Brenda's big break came. She was discovered by Julio Lebona, a prominent music producer, who brought her to Soweto, the heartbeat of South African music. There, she joined the vocal group Joy and later fronted a band that would change everything, Brenda and the Big Dudes. In 1983, they released a single that became a cultural earthquake, Weekend Special, titled Weekend Special. It wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. The fastest selling record in South Africa, blasting through radios in taxis, clubs, and homes across the continent. Brenda's voice was everywhere, and for the first time, a young black woman was dominating a male-driven scene. Soon, Brenda and the Big Dudes were touring the world, London, New York, Brazil, and other parts of the world, introducing African pop to global audiences. At the time, Brenda was unstoppable. Her magic was everywhere, and she was the bright star of South Africa. Despite all this success, Brenda wanted more. In the late 1980s, she went solo, and with Chico Twala as her producer, magic happened. Her late 1989 album, titled Too Late for Mama, went platinum. But Brenda's music wasn't just for dancing. It was a weapon against oppression, and in 1990, she released Black President, which was a tribute to Nelson Mandela, because at the time he was still in jail. In a country where speaking out was dangerous, Brenda sang loudly and proudly because she knew her voice was the only weapon that she had. She became a voice for the voiceless, a fearless artist in the fight for freedom. By 2001, Time magazine called her the Madonna of townships. But unlike Madonna, Brenda's rebellion wasn't just for show, it was for survival, because her music was at the heart of apartheid in South Africa, which was a dangerous and very difficult time for Black South Africans. Brenda's life wasn't just glamorous stages and hit records. Behind the fame, chaos brewed. She became the darling of tabloids. Every move was a headline. She loved fiercely, lived loudly, and made no apologies. In 1985, she gave birth to her only son, Bongani. In 1989, she married Langa Mbambo, but the marriage collapsed under the weight of her drug addiction. Cocaine became her shadow, following her everywhere. By the mid-1990s, scandals exploded. The most shocking, Brenda was found in a hotel with her female lover, Pupi Silala, who had died from an overdose. Brenda survived, but the story dominated front pages for months. Rehab followed, over and over. Some say 30 times in a total. But no matter how deep the darkness, Brenda always came back to the light through her music. Because she was like a brighting star who had so much power and so much energy to bring to the music scene, and every performance of hers was like magic. Despite all her challenges, her addiction, and everything, Brenda Fassie still was able to bring joy and happiness to the faces of South Africans who were going through a tough time. That was her magic. Despite all the setbacks, the bad PR, and the challenges that Brenda faced in the early 1990s, in late 1998, Brenda roared back with Memeza. The album shattered records, becoming the best-selling album in South Africa. It was more than music. It was a redemption for her due to her past records in a few years. Tracks like Vulindela and Nama Kanjani, sorry if I'm not pronouncing it well, became national anthems. They were played at weddings, funerals, street parties. Brenda was back on top, and she was bigger than ever before at this time. She won so many different awards like the South African Music Awards, the Cora Awards, and even became the continent's ultimate pop diva. But through all, Brenda stayed Brenda. She was wild, unpredictable, and deeply loved. In the early 2000s, her cocaine addiction became so high, and in April 26, 2004, Brenda collapsed at home after a cocaine overdose and possible asthma attack. The news shook the nation. She slipped into a coma. Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, and Thabo Mbeki, who was the current president of South Africa at the time, visited her bedside. Fans prayed, but 2 weeks later, which was on May 9, 2004, South Africa lost its brightest star. Brenda Fassie was gone, and it was so sad because at the time, she was just 39 years old. So full of life and full of dreams. A lot of fans were expecting so much from her because of her energy, but unfortunately at 39, the world lost Brenda Fassie. Like the saying goes, legends never die, and artists never die. Brenda Fassie's voice still echoes through South Africa's streets. Not just South Africa, the entire African continent, and as well as the world at large. Her songs still dance at celebrations. Her spirit still ignites the hearts of those who dare to be bold. She was a rebel, a queen, a mother, and a force of nature. Brenda Fassie didn't just make music. She made history for herself and for the entire South African people. And her message was clear. Live loudly. Love fiercely, and never, ever apologize for being yourself. Her life was a testament of her sayings, and her music was a testament of who she was as a person. She brought so much joy to millions of South Africans going through bondage and was able to also create a great legacy for herself and for the African continent, which still inspires tons of generations today. Her music and her legacy still lives in our hearts, and her prominent songs like Vulindela was a great part of our childhood growing up. I'm sure a ton of us watching this video can still remember her songs